Look, great bilateral press conference, one of the first held in Washington, D.C. With Secretary Blinken, and of course inviting Australia. We should expect a lot more of these bilateral meetings coming up. So just first of all, showing the strength of the alliance and the importance of the relationship when it comes to China. As you mentioned, one of the two major things that came out of this was another discussion of requests, even demands for an independent inquiry into the coronavirus origins. At the same time, Australia did say that the most likely evidence right now, the most likely origin was due to an animal being part of the chain rather than coming out of a failed experiment within Wuhan, but still demanding that China provides evidence to the world and the actual lab testing data that back it up. So that's just one of the things that they came together. The other second thing that came out of this press conference, which was very interesting, was both sides, Foreign Minister Payne coming afterwards and saying other countries should feel more relieved due to the U.S. strength of the U.S.-Australia alliance strength, that they should feel protected by the U.S. in these words, and they should feel like they can call out China on more things. So you can tell that not just celebrating the strength of the U.S.-Australia relationship, but together are starting to try to show that they want to build a larger coalition of countries that are willing to challenge China on these things.
Well, and surely that's speaking to the point of if there are other countries of Australia's size, that they can have a voice. And as long as the US is with Australia and others, then you form that group, because it's not like the US needs us to back them up. Is that where you see this coming from?
Well, yes and no. I mean, maybe in the sort of grand economic and military sense, the U.S. doesn't need Australia when it comes to that side. But Australia is such a key to building a global coalition, particularly being in the region. Right? So the U.S. is a Pacific country with Hawaii and sort of the west coast of California. If the U.S.-Australia alliance is considered to be that strong, it really can be a foothold to build alliances with other countries within the region. So in that case, Australia is very much needed.
Good to know from our point of view. Interesting comments from Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, saying Ukraine is becoming anti-Russian. He made these comments on the back of a seemingly political arrests in Ukraine, which makes them seem a bit rich from him.
That's right. So the key thing to take away from President Putin's comments this week, where he said that Ukraine is growing increasingly anti-Russia, and as you mentioned, it was after Ukraine arrested one of Putin's best friends, who's traditionally been an intermediary. This is Viktor Medvedchuk, who's traditionally been an intermediary between President Zelensky and President Putin, is the fact that going forward, Putin is still able to sort of control the pro-Russian movement within Ukraine. There's definitely back-channel support for these protesters, for the militant groups, and Putin can sort of move things around and sort of create more conflict within Ukraine at will, and then build the Russian military up on the border in response. So it's very much within Putin's control as to be able to create this, and this is just another signal of that.
Yeah, well, that's the worry. You'll keep an eye on that for us, I'm sure. Just finally, media tycoon in Hong Kong, Jimmy Lai, well, we know he was arrested in prison for daring to take part in a pro-democracy protest, but now some of his financial assets frozen?
That's right, Tom. And just remember, about every 6 months, China will put something, relatively small out like this. Like Jimmy Lai had been arrested. He hasn't been charged yet, but now his assets have been frozen. And it's the sort of thing that, doesn't grab global headlines, but that's China's plan, is every few months is to put something out that's within the gray zone, something that you don't necessarily, say is the news of the day, but it does continually show the trajectory and trend towards China having a complete foothold within Hong Kong. So now it's a private business that has had their assets frozen. And what will be when Jimmy Lai is actually imprisoned and formally charged, that'll be the next step. But just, it's another stage. We're going to see that Hong Kong is going to see capital flight, and fewer businesses are going to want to do business there. And China's taking that calculated risk.
Well, it just has to follow, doesn't it? How could there not be capital flight given that particular
That's right.
risk? It's already happening so far. But as we've discussed before, Hong Kong, 20 years ago, its importance was outsized to China, but it's just not really the case anymore.
Mm-hmm. And that's right. And remember, the Apple Daily, which is Jimmy Lai's newspaper that is the pro-democracy newspaper within Hong Kong, also has a presence in Taiwan. China knows this, and being able to threaten Jimmy Lai's businesses might actually threaten the Apple Daily and its publishing within Taiwan, because all China wants to do is have a similar model for what it's done with Hong Kong in Taiwan. There's no question.